The emergency beacon shrieked through Station Kyros like a dying star, and Security Chief Ravenclaw felt his 3 stomachs clench simultaneously. In his 40 cycles of service, he had never heard that particular frequency. It was the one reserved for Class 7 incidents, catastrophic containment failure of apex-tier specimens. "Tell me this is a drill," he muttered, his mandibles clicking nervously as he rushed toward the central command hub. Operations Officer Melthra looked up from her console, her face plates pale with terror. "Negative, Chief. The Ravenclaw's missing." Ravenclaw stopped dead. "Missing? That thing weighs 1,200 pounds and has claws that can shred titanium. How exactly does it go missing?" Security feeds show it was in its habitat at 0300. At 0315, the cameras experienced a brief disruption. When they came back online 30 seconds later, it was gone. Melthra pulled up the footage, her fingers trembling over the controls. The habitat appeared on screen, a carefully engineered environment of artificial cliffs and dense vegetation designed to house one of the galaxy's most dangerous predators. The Ravenclaw, a magnificent beast from the death world of Targus Prime, had been the station's pride. They had spent 2 years negotiating with the Targus government just for permission to study one. Its midnight black scales, retractable talons, and triple rows of serrated teeth made it the perfect killing machine. Researchers came from 12 sectors just to observe it, and now it was gone. "Show me the surrounding corridors," Ravenclaw ordered, already pulling up the station's emergency protocols on his wrist display. Melthra cycled through camera after camera. Nothing, no sign of the creature, no breached walls, no trail of destruction. The Ravenclaw had simply vanished. "This makes no sense," Ravenclaw growled. "Even if it somehow escaped its containment field, which should be impossible, the habitat doors require 3 separate authorization codes, and the weight sensors would have triggered lockdown if anything over 50 pounds crossed the threshold." "Chief, you need to see this." Melthra froze an image from hallway 6. The timestamp read 0342. "This is the only anomaly in the entire system." Ravenclaw leaned closer. The image showed a human, one of the maintenance workers by the looks of his gray coveralls, walking calmly through the corridor. Nothing unusual about that. Humans were common enough on mixed species stations, though their presence still made most other species nervous. They were from Earth, after all, a Class 12 death world. Only 3 other known planets in the database ranked higher on the lethality scale. "What am I looking at, Melthra?" "Wait for it." She advanced the footage frame by frame. The human turned slightly, adjusting something in his arms. For just a moment, the angle was right, and the camera caught a glimpse of what he was carrying. Ravenclaw's blood ran cold. Scales, midnight black scales, and the distinctive ridge pattern of a Ravenclaw's head. "By the void," he whispered. "Is that thing curled up in his arms?" "Affirmative, Chief. And before you ask, yes, I checked his identification. His name is Marcus Webb, Groundsman assigned to the Botanical Gardens. He has been on station for 16 months, 0 disciplinary issues. All psychological evaluations came back normal, whatever normal means for humans." Ravenclaw pulled up Marcus Webb's personnel file. The image showed a human male with dark hair, average height for his species, and an expression of mild boredom that seemed to be standard for identification photos. His work record was spotless, perhaps too spotless. "Where is he now?" Tracking him through the station grid. Melthra's fingers danced across her console. "He is currently in Sector 7, the garden maintenance area. No unusual activity. Thermal scans show 2 signatures in his quarters. One human-sized, one matching the mass of a Ravenclaw. 2 signatures in his quarters." Ravenclaw repeated the words slowly, trying to make them make sense. They did not. "So you are telling me that this human, this groundsman, somehow extracted the most dangerous predator on this station from a habitat with more security than the station commander's office, carried it through the hallways like it was a pet, and brought it back to his room?" "That appears to be the situation, yes." "And nobody stopped him? Nobody thought it was strange?" Melthra pulled up more footage. There were at least 6 instances where other station personnel had passed Marcus in the corridors. A Zentari janitor had even nodded a greeting to him. Not one of them had noticed the apex predator wrapped in the human's arms. "It gets stranger, Chief," Melthra said, her voice dropping. "I pulled audio from the habitat area. Listen to this." Static crackled through the speakers, then resolved into sounds. The low, menacing rumble that every species recognized as a threat display. The kind of noise that triggered prey responses, hardwired over millions of years of evolution. Then, impossibly, another sound layered over it. Humming. A human was humming a tune. "Who's a good girl? Yes, you are. You're such a good girl, aren't you?" The human voice was soft, affectionate, the kind of tone people used with infants. "I know those researchers keep poking you with their scanners. So rude. You want to get out of here for a bit? Come on, that's it. Easy now." The threat rumble softened, transformed into something that almost sounded like purring. "No," Varncol said flatly. "Absolutely not. I refuse to believe what I just heard." "Believe it, Chief. He talked an apex predator out of its habitat, and it went willingly." Varncol sat down heavily, his legs suddenly unsteady. In 4 decades of security work, he had dealt with riots, containment breaches, attempted coups, and one memorable incident involving a Glorbian, ambassador and a cargo hold full of fermented fruit. But this defied every protocol, every procedure, every logical explanation. "Get me a tactical team," he ordered. "Full containment gear, neural dampeners, tranquilizer loads heavy enough to drop a Krathian war beast, and find me every piece of information we have on human behavior, particularly regarding predatory animals." "Already on it, Chief." Melthra pulled up files faster than Varncol could track. "But you should know, the research on human and animal interactions is disturbing." "How disturbing?" "Well, humans have a documented history of what they call domestication. They have been doing it for thousands of their years. They take wild predators and somehow convince them to live peacefully alongside humans. Dogs, cats, horses, even some reptiles and birds. Species that should view humans as threats or prey instead form what humans call bonds with them." Varncol stared at her. "You are telling me humans have been doing this for thousands of years? Taking predators and making them into companions? Not just predators, Chief. Apex predators. Earth wolves, which evolved into their dogs, were pack hunters that took down prey twice their size. Earth cats were solitary ambush predators. Both of them now live in human homes and are considered family members. There are records of humans keeping everything from venomous serpents to massive bears." "That's insane." "Chief, they are from a Class 12 death world. Everything about them is insane by our standards. They evolved as persistence hunters who can run prey to exhaustion. They can survive injuries that would kill most species. They have a chemical in their bodies that makes them functionally immune to certain toxins, and apparently they have some kind of instinctive ability to communicate with predatory animals." The tactical team arrived, 7 heavily armored security personnel carrying enough firepower to stop a small invasion. Varncol briefed them quickly, watching their expressions shift from confidence to confusion to outright disbelief. "Sir, you want us to extract a Ravenclaw from a human's quarters?" Lieutenant Cross asked, his vocal sac inflating with stress. "With the human presumably still present?" "That is correct. Permission to speak freely, sir." "Granted. This is the stupidest mission I have ever been assigned, and I once had to remove a colony of acid-spitting Vrel from the water recycling system." "Your objection is noted, Lieutenant. Move out." They proceeded through the station in formation, weapons ready, every sensor calibrated for maximum sensitivity. Other station personnel scrambled out of their way, picking up on the tension radiating from the security team. Word had already spread through the gossip networks. The Ravenclaw was loose, and everyone knew what that meant. Lockdown protocols would be enacted soon if they could not resolve this quickly. Sector 7 was the agricultural heart of the station, where dozens of species of plants were cultivated to supplement the food replicators and provide fresh oxygen. The air here smelled of earth and growing things, so different from the recycled atmosphere of the rest of the station that it was almost disorienting. Marcus Webb's quarters were located at the far end of the sector, a small residential unit attached to the maintenance workshop. Standard accommodation for service personnel. Nothing special about it, except for the massive apex predator presumably inside. Varncol held up a fist, signaling the team to halt. He pulled up the thermal imaging on his display. 2 heat signatures, exactly as Melthra had reported. One human-sized, sitting on what appeared to be a couch. The other, much larger, curled against the human's torso. "Audio surveillance?" he whispered to his second. "Already active, sir." Specialist Threnall handed him an earpiece. Varncol inserted it carefully, expecting to hear the sounds of a predator feeding, or perhaps the death screams of its victim. What he heard instead made him question his own sanity. "You are such a drama queen, you know that?" Marcus's voice, warm with amusement. "Those scans didn't even hurt. They just wanted to check your vitals. No, don't give me that look. I saw the footage. You were perfectly fine." A low rumbling sound, not quite a growl, not quite a purr. "Oh, now you are just fishing for sympathy. Fine, yes, you are very fierce and scary. The most terrifying creature in the galaxy. There, happy now?" The rumbling intensified, and Varncol could hear something that sounded suspiciously like contented chirping. "Okay, belly rubs, but just for a minute. I have to go back to work soon, and you need to return to your habitat before security realizes you are gone. Yes, I know it is boring there, but it is safe, and the researchers really do need to study you. Your species is important. We need to understand how you work so we can help protect your homeworld." Lieutenant Cross looked at Varncol with an expression that clearly said, "What in the name of all the stars is happening?" Varncol had no answer for him. "Sir, should we breach?" Cross whispered. "Negative, not yet." Varncol activated his communication implant. "Webb, this is Security Chief Varncol. We need to talk. Now." Silence from inside the quarters. Then, the sound of a very human sigh. "Yeah, I figured you guys would notice eventually. Doors unlocked. But please, come in slowly and keep your weapons lowered. She is not great with sudden movements when she is relaxed." The tactical team exchanged glances. They had trained for hostile insertions, for armed resistance, for violent confrontations. They had not trained for polite invitations. Varncol made the decision. "We are going in. Weapons ready but pointed at the floor. Anyone fires without my direct order, and you will be scrubbing waste recyclers for the next year. Clear?" A chorus of affirmatives. The door slid, open with a soft hiss, and Varncol got his first direct look at the situation. Marcus Webb sat on a worn couch, dressed in his gray maintenance coveralls, looking for all the universe like a man enjoying a quiet evening at home. And curled across his lap, taking up most of the couch and part of the floor, was the Ravenclaw. Up close, it was even more impressive than the holovid suggested. Its scales caught the light like liquid shadow, each one edged with a faint, iridescent gleam. Its head, the size of Varncol's entire torso, rested against Marcus's chest. 3-inch talons, capable of shredding armor plating, were retracted and relaxed. And its eyes, those terrifying amber eyes that glowed with predatory intelligence, were half closed in what could only be described as bliss. "Evening, Chief," Marcus said casually, as if this was a completely normal social call. "Sorry about the confusion. I would have filed a request form, but I figured it would get denied." "Filed a request form," Varncol repeated, his voice barely above a whisper. "You would have filed a request form to remove a Class 7 apex predator from its habitat for what, exactly? A social visit? Well, when you say it like that, it sounds irresponsible." Marcus scratched behind what Varncol assumed was the Ravenclaw's ear, or at least the ridge where an ear might be. The creature made a sound somewhere between a rumble and a coo. Look, she was stressed. The constant monitoring, the researchers tapping on the glass, the medical scans. It is a lot. She needed a break. It is a predator, Webb. A killing machine from one of the most hostile environments in known space. It does not get stressed. It gets hungry. Everything gets stressed, Chief. Marcus's expression turned serious, and for a moment, Varncole saw something in those human eyes that made him deeply uncomfortable. It was not fear or respect or even defiance. It was certainty, the absolute confidence of someone who knew they were right. Just because something is dangerous does not mean it does not have feelings. Luna here is smart, probably smarter than half the researchers studying her. She gets bored, she gets lonely, and yeah, she gets stressed. You named it Luna? Her. And yes, she told me that is what she wanted to be called. Varncole felt one of his stomachs trying to escape through his mouth. It told you, the Ravenclaw, which does not possess vocal cords capable of producing language, told you its name is Luna. Not in words, obviously, but communication is not just about words, Chief. It is about body language, behavioral cues, emotional resonance. Luna and I understand each other. The Ravenclaw, Luna, apparently, chose that moment to lift her head and focus those amber eyes directly on Varncole. He froze, every survival instinct screaming at him to run. The creature studied him with an intensity that suggested she was calculating exactly how many bites it would take to consume him. Then she yawned, revealing rows of teeth that would give nightmares to hardened combat veterans, stretched in a way that was oddly feline, and settled back against Marcus with a contented rumble. "See?" Marcus said, smiling. "Totally harmless. That creature could decapitate you with one swipe. Luna would never do that. We are friends." And that, Varncole realized with a sinking feeling, was the truly terrifying part. Marcus genuinely believed it. There was no hint of fear in his body language, no tension, no stress pheromones. He was completely relaxed in the presence of a predator that could kill him in seconds. But then, he was human. And humans, apparently, had been doing this exact thing for thousands of years. "Webb, I need you to explain to me, very carefully, how you managed to extract Luna from her habitat without triggering any alarms or security protocols." Marcus shrugged. "I asked nicely, and I might have helped design some of the enclosure systems during my first month here. Groundsmen consult on habitat environments, you know. We understand plants, soil composition, drainage systems. Turns out we also understand security weaknesses in electronic locks. You hacked the habitat security. Hacked is such an ugly word. I prefer creatively reinterpreted the access protocols." Lieutenant Cross made a choking sound. "Sir, that is a direct admission of multiple criminal violations, unauthorized access, security breach, theft of station property." "Luna is not property," Marcus interrupted, his voice hardening. "She is a living being, and she deserves to be treated with respect and dignity, not kept in a cage and prodded like some kind of curiosity." The Ravenclaw's eyes opened fully at the change in Marcus's tone, and suddenly the temperature in the room seemed to drop. She lifted her head, focusing on Lieutenant Cross with an intensity that was unmistakable. Her talons extended slightly, scraping against the floor with a sound like knives on stone. "Luna, easy," Marcus murmured, placing a hand on her scaled head. "They are just doing their jobs. Nobody's going to hurt you, I promise." The creature's eyes shifted to Marcus, then back to the security team. After a long moment, she retracted her talons and settled back down, though her body remained coiled with potential energy. Varncole realized he had been holding his breath. "Webb, you are in serious trouble here. You violated approximately 17 station regulations, committed at least 3 major security breaches, and endangered the lives of everyone on this station." "Did I?" Marcus asked calmly. "Who exactly did I endanger? Luna hasn't hurt anyone. She has been with me for 6 hours now, walked through populated corridors, and the worst thing she did was sniff a potted plant in the common area. If she was actually dangerous, if she was the mindless killing machine you all seem to think she is, wouldn't there be bodies by now?" It was a disturbingly good point. The fact remains that she is a Class 7 specimen, and you removed her from authorized containment without permission. The protocols exist for a reason. The protocols exist because everyone is terrified of anything they don't understand. You have been studying Luna for 2 years, and what have you learned? That she is strong, fast, intelligent, and has a remarkable regenerative capability. Great. But have you learned anything about what she thinks, what she feels, what she needs? That's not how xenobiological research works. Maybe it should be. Marcus stood slowly, carefully supporting Luna's weight as the massive creature stretched and flowed around him like living shadow. She was even bigger standing up, her shoulder height reaching Marcus's chest. Look, Chief, I get it. You have rules, procedures. But sometimes rules need to be challenged, especially when they cause suffering. Suffering? Varncole's mandibles clicked in disbelief. She is in a state-of-the-art habitat with climate control, optimal nutrition, and the finest veterinary care in 3 sectors. She is in a prison, Chief. A comfortable prison, sure, but still a prison. She is from a world where her species roams mountain ranges the size of continents, where they hunt in packs under twin moons, where they are free. And you have got her in a box where her longest sprint is maybe 50 meters. The security team shifted uncomfortably. Nobody had signed up for a philosophical debate about the ethics of xenobiological containment. What exactly are you proposing, Webb? Let me work with her, properly, not as a specimen, but as a partner. I can help your researchers learn more about her species than they ever could through observation and scans. Luna will cooperate if she is treated with respect. And, in return, maybe we can work out an arrangement where she gets more freedom, more stimulation, a larger habitat perhaps, or supervised excursions outside the containment area. You are out of your mind. Probably. It is a human thing. Marcus smiled, and Varncole noticed that Luna's head turned to look at him when he did, as if responding to his emotional state. But I am also right. You know I am. Otherwise, you would have shot us both the second you came through that door. Varncole realized his team had indeed kept their weapons lowered throughout the entire encounter, despite the presence of a Class 7 apex predator, despite the clear security breach. Despite every protocol screaming at them to treat this as a hostile situation, they had all instinctively recognized something. Luna was not acting like a threat. She was acting like Marcus's companion. This is not over, Webb. You are confined to quarters pending investigation. The Ravenclaw Luna returns to her habitat immediately. And you are going to explain in excruciating detail exactly how you accomplished this breach so we can ensure it never happens again. Fair enough, Marcus agreed, but I am going to be the one to take her back, and I am going to do it my way. She trusts me. If your team tries to force her, someone is going to get hurt, and it probably won't be Luna. It was a threat delivered with a smile, but a threat nonetheless. Against his better judgment, against every regulation in the book, Varncole nodded. Fine, but we are escorting you every step of the way. Marcus collected a jacket from his closet, and Luna watched him with obvious interest. When he moved toward the door, she flowed alongside him with liquid grace, her massive body somehow navigating the tight space without knocking anything over. The journey back through the station was surreal. Marcus walked calmly through the corridors with an apex predator at his side like it was the most natural thing in the universe. And Luna, for her part, seemed perfectly content to stay close to him, occasionally bumping her head against his shoulder in what looked disturbingly affectionate. They passed a group of Zentari engineers who flattened themselves against the wall in terror. They encountered a maintenance drone that wisely reversed direction, and they walked directly past the station commissary, where at least 30 different species watched through the transparent aluminum windows with expressions of pure shock. By the time they reached the habitat area, Varncole estimated that 90% of the station had heard about the incident. His communication implant had been buzzing non-stop with messages from the station commander, the head of research, and at least 6 different department chiefs. This was going to be a nightmare of paperwork. The habitat doors opened, revealing the carefully designed environment within. Luna stopped at the threshold, her body language shifting. The relaxed, almost playful demeanor evaporated, replaced by something tense and uncertain. "I know, girl," Marcus murmured, kneeling beside her. "I know you don't want to go back, but it is just for a little while, okay? I am going to work on getting you a better place. Somewhere bigger, somewhere that feels more like home. I promise." Luna made a sound, low and mournful, that sent chills down Varncole's spine. It was the sound of something genuinely unhappy, something that understood it was being separated from a companion. Marcus wrapped his arms around her massive neck, and the Ravenclaw pressed against him with surprising gentleness. They stayed like that for a long moment, human and predator, in a tableau that would have been unthinkable to anyone who had not witnessed it firsthand. "Go on," Marcus said softly. "I will visit. Every day. I promise." Luna pulled back slowly, her amber eyes fixed on Marcus's face. Then, with obvious reluctance, she turned and padded into the habitat. The doors closed behind her with a heavy thunk, and the containment fields reactivated with a faint hum. Marcus stood there for a moment, staring at the habitat doors, then turned to face Varncole and the security team. "Now what?" "Now," Varncole said wearily, "you and I have a very long conversation with a lot of very angry people, and somehow I have to figure out how to write a report explaining how a human groundsman befriended a Class 7 apex predator, removed it from maximum security containment, and returned it safely without anyone getting killed." "Good luck with that, Chief." "Yeah," Varncole muttered. "I am going to need it." As they escorted Marcus away, Varncole glanced back at the habitat. Through the transparent aluminum viewing panel, he could see Luna pacing along the perimeter, her gaze fixed on the direction Marcus had gone. And for the first time in his 40 cycles of service, Varncole wondered if maybe the humans had a point. Maybe some beings, no matter how dangerous, deserved more than just observation and study. Maybe they deserved friendship. It was a disturbing thought, almost as disturbing as the fact that he was seriously considering recommending Marcus's proposal to the station commander. Humans, Varncole decided, were going to be the death of him. Or possibly, he thought, watching Luna settle down but keeping her attention focused on the exit, possibly they were going to teach everyone else a valuable lesson about the nature of connection. Either way, Station Kyros was never going to be quite the same. The detention conference room had seen better days. Varncole sat across from Marcus Webb, a datapad full of incident reports glowing between them like an accusation. Station Commander Ixthor loomed at the head of the table, her crystalline exoskeleton reflecting the harsh overhead lights in a way that made her look even more intimidating than usual. "Let me see if I understand this correctly," Ixthor said, her voice carrying the kind of cold precision that preceded career-ending decisions. "You, Groundsman Webb, hacked into our most secure biological containment system, removed a specimen worth approximately 6 million credits, paraded it through populated corridors, and kept it in your personal quarters for 6 hours. Do I have that right?" "Technically, I didn't hack anything," Marcus corrected. "I used my legitimate maintenance access credentials to identify a vulnerability in the door authorization sequence, then exploited that vulnerability to bypass the secondary lock." "That is literally the definition of hacking," Varncole muttered. "And Luna isn't a specimen. She is a person. Different kind of person, sure, but still deserving of basic respect." Ixthor's head tilted in that way species with rigid exoskeletons had when they wanted to convey disbelief without actual facial expressions. The Ravenclaw is classified as a non-sapient predator. It does not have personhood under galactic convention law. "Your laws are wrong, then." The room went silent. Nobody spoke to Station Commander Ixthor like that. Nobody with a functioning survival instinct anyway. "I could have you arrested," Ixthor said slowly. "Charged with multiple criminal violations. You would spend the next 10 cycles in a detention facility, probably on some mining colony where they don't care that you're human." "You could," Marcus agreed, "but you won't. And why, exactly, wouldn't I?" Because despite everything, nobody got hurt. Because Luna is back in her habitat, completely unharmed. And because deep down, you are curious. You want to know how I did it. How a maintenance worker with no xenobiological training managed to form a bond with a creature your top researchers have been studying for 2 years without making any real progress. Varncol had to admire the human's audacity, even if it was going to get him killed. Or worse, assigned to waste recycling. Research Director Fenlock spoke up from his position near the wall. The elderly Corthan had been observing silently, his multiple eye stalks tracking the conversation with academic interest. Actually, Commander, the human raises an intriguing point. We have been attempting to study Ravenclaw behavior through observation and non-invasive scanning. Our results have been, admittedly, limited. Perhaps a more interactive approach would yield better data. You want to reward his criminal behavior? Ixthor's voice could have frozen hydrogen. I want to advance our understanding of a species we know almost nothing about, Fenlock replied calmly. Webb managed to establish communication with the specimen in a matter of weeks. That alone is scientifically significant. I didn't establish communication, Marcus interjected. I just paid attention. Luna was trying to communicate the whole time. You all were just too busy treating her like a dangerous animal to notice. Varncol pulled up footage on his datapad, the recordings from Marcus's quarters that had been logged during the incident. Commander, you should see this. The behavioral patterns are unprecedented. He projected the video onto the conference room wall. Luna sprawled across Marcus's couch, making sounds that the audio analysis software classified as contentment vocalizations. Marcus, talking to her in that same gentle tone humans apparently used with companion animals, and Luna responding, not with aggression or fear, but with what could only be interpreted as affection. This is impossible, breathed Dr. Hicksna, the station's lead xenobiologist. She had been silent until now, her attention fixed on the footage with an intensity that bordered on obsession. Ravenclaws are solitary apex predators. They do not form social bonds outside of brief mating periods. Every study, every observation from their homeworld confirms this. Every observation from a distance, Marcus countered. Has anyone ever actually tried to interact with one? To meet them on their own terms instead of just watching from behind barriers? It would be suicide, Hicksna said flatly. The Targus government warned us extensively about the dangers. 3 researchers died during the capture process. 2 more were critically injured during transport. These creatures are lethal. These creatures are scared and confused in an alien environment. Marcus shot back. How would you react if something twice your size drugged you, stuffed you in a box, and shipped you halfway across the galaxy to be stared at by beings you had never seen before? You would probably be pretty hostile too. Ixthor made a grinding sound that Varncol recognized as her species' equivalent of a sigh. What exactly are you proposing, Webb? That we let you continue your unauthorized interactions with a Class 7 predator? I am proposing a controlled study. Let me work with Luna under proper supervision. Let your researchers observe how we interact, document the methods, analyze the results. If it works, you will have groundbreaking data on Ravenclaw cognition and social capacity. If it doesn't work, well, I will be dead, and you can add my name to the list of casualties. That is not reassuring, Varncol muttered. Look, Marcus continued, leaning forward. I get that you all think I am crazy. Maybe I am, but I have worked with dangerous animals my entire life. Back on Earth, I rehabilitated wildlife. Wolves, bears, big cats that had been injured or orphaned. I learned how to read body language, how to establish trust, how to communicate across species barriers. It is not magic, it is just patience and respect. Earth predators are not comparable to Ravenclaws, Hicksna argued. The evolutionary pressures, the environmental factors, the neurological structure, all completely different. Fear is fear. Trust is trust. Those things are universal. And Luna is capable of both. Fenlock's eye stalks quivered with excitement. If Webb is correct, the implications are staggering. We have been operating under the assumption that apex predators from high-threat worlds are essentially biological machines, driven purely by instinct. But if they possess emotional complexity, social needs, maybe even rudimentary reasoning, then our entire approach to xenobiological study would need revision. Or, Ixthor said coldly, Webb is projecting human characteristics onto a creature that does not possess them, and we are wasting time discussing the delusions of a maintenance worker with a death wish. Marcus stood abruptly, his chair scraping against the floor. Fine, you want proof? Give me 1 week. Let me work with Luna under whatever supervision you want. Cameras, armed guards, neural dampeners on standby, whatever makes you feel safe. If I can demonstrate measurable progress in communication and cooperation, you consider implementing a new protocol. If I fail, I will accept whatever punishment you decide and never go near the habitat again. And if you get killed? Varncol asked. Then you can say you told me so at my funeral, but you will have learned something valuable either way. The room erupted into argument. Hixna insisted it was too dangerous. Fenlock argued it was too valuable an opportunity to pass up. Several security advisors weighed in with concerns about liability and station safety. And through it all, Marcus stood calmly, waiting for the chaos to resolve itself. Ixthor finally raised a manipulator for silence. 1 week, full monitoring, security presence at all times, any sign of aggressive behavior from the Ravenclaw, and we sedated immediately. Any deviation from approved protocols, and you are confined to the brig. Understood. Understood, Commander. And Webb, if you die doing this, I am putting killed by own stupidity on your death certificate. Marcus grinned. Fair enough. 3 hours later, Varncol found himself standing outside the habitat observation deck, watching Marcus undergo what the humans called a safety briefing. Dr. Hixna was explaining in excruciating detail all the ways a Ravenclaw could kill him. Marcus listened politely, nodding at appropriate intervals, looking completely unconcerned. He is insane, Lieutenant Cross whispered beside Varncol. Certifiably, completely insane. He is human, Varncol replied. From their perspective, this is probably just another Tuesday. The briefing concluded, and Marcus approached the habitat entrance. He had refused all protective gear except for a communication earpiece and a medical monitor clipped to his belt. When Hixna suggested body armor, he had laughed and said it would just make Luna think he did not trust her. The logic was distinctly human. The habitat doors opened, and Marcus stepped through. Every camera in the facility focused on him. The research team monitored from the observation deck. Security stood ready with tranquilizer rifles and neural disruptors. Medical staff waited on standby with emergency equipment. Luna was pacing near the far wall when Marcus entered. She froze at the sight of him, her head swiveling with predatory precision. For a long moment, nothing happened. The entire station seemed to hold its breath. Then Luna made a sound, a low rumbling chirp that the audio analysis software had no classification for, and she bounded toward Marcus with terrifying speed. "Weapons ready!" Varncol barked into his communicator, but Marcus held up a hand, his expression calm. "Stand down. She is happy to see me." Luna reached him and did something that should have been impossible. She reared up on her hind legs, placed her massive forepaws on Marcus's shoulders with surprising gentleness, and pressed her scaled head against his chest. The posture was unmistakably affectionate, something out of place on a creature designed for killing. Marcus wrapped his arms around her neck, scratching behind the ridge of her skull. "Hey, girl. Told you I would come back. Miss me." The rumbling intensified, and Luna's tail, thick as Varncol's torso, swished back and forth in what could only be described as wagging. "By the void," Hixna whispered, her voice crackling through the communicator. "She is exhibiting pack-bonding behavior. Ravenclaws, don't do that. They have never done that in any documented observation." "Maybe they have never had a reason to," Fenlock suggested, his eye stalks practically vibrating with excitement. If they are apex predators on a world with limited resources, pack behavior might be suppressed by environmental pressures. But remove those pressures, introduce a non-threatening companion, and perhaps dormant social instincts emerge. Marcus was walking now, moving deeper into the habitat with Luna following closely. Not stalking, not hunting. Following, the way a companion would. He talked to her constantly, a steady stream of words that the translation software struggled with because half of it was not actual language, just soothing sounds and tone variations. Over the next hour, Marcus demonstrated something that should have been theoretical. He directed Luna through a series of simple interactions. Sit, stay, come here. Basic commands that dog trainers on Earth had been using for thousands of years. And Luna, the unstoppable apex predator from a death world, obeyed. Not because she was forced, not because she was afraid, but because she wanted to cooperate. "This changes everything," Fenlock muttered, recording every second. "If we can establish cooperative relationships with apex predators, the implications for conservation efforts, for ecological studies, for understanding predator cognition across the galaxy." "You are getting ahead of yourself," Ixthor cautioned, though even her rigid stance had softened slightly. "This is one creature and one unusually talented human. That does not mean the approach is universally applicable. But it means it is possible," Hixna said, and Varncol heard genuine wonder in her voice. "We have been treating these creatures as specimens, as objects of study, but Webb treats Luna as an individual with thoughts and feelings, and she responds to that." The week progressed in a way that defied every expectation. Each day, Marcus spent hours in the habitat with Luna. They played, an apex predator and a human, engaged in what looked disturbingly like games. Luna would hide behind artificial rock formations, then leap out in mock ambushes that Marcus somehow always anticipated. He would throw objects for her to retrieve, and she would bring them back, clearly enjoying the interaction. The research team documented everything. Luna's vocalizations, which they discovered were far more complex than initial studies suggested. Her body language, which conveyed nuanced emotional states. Her problem-solving capabilities, which were frankly startling. When Marcus hid treats around the habitat, Luna systematically searched for them using what appeared to be strategic thinking, checking likely locations and remembering where she had already searched. "She is not just intelligent," Hixna reported on the 5th day. "She is sapient. Maybe not to the level of developing language or technology, but she has self-awareness, emotional complexity, and the ability to form meaningful relationships. We have been studying her for 2 years and completely missed it. Because you were looking at her instead of with her," Marcus said, emerging from the habitat covered in dust and what looked suspiciously like drool. "Luna isn't a specimen. She is a person. Treat her like one, and she will show you what she is capable of." On the 6th day, Marcus proposed something that made Varncol's stomachs clench all over again. "I want to take Luna outside the habitat. A supervised excursion through the botanical gardens. Let her experience something other than her enclosure." "Absolutely not," Ixthor said immediately. "Commander, she has been cooped up for 2 years. She needs stimulation, variety. The gardens are secured. We can clear the area of other personnel, have security positioned at every exit, but she deserves to see something beyond those 4 walls." The debate raged for hours. Eventually, a compromise was reached. Luna could visit the gardens, but only in a restricted section, with heavy security presence, and only for 30 minutes. Varncol found himself coordinating what was essentially a military operation for a nature walk. 20 security personnel, portable containment barriers, medical teams on standby, evacuation protocols for the entire sector, all so one human could take his predator friend for a stroll. The absurdity was not lost on him. When the day came, Luna emerged from her habitat with obvious excitement. Her scales seemed to shimmer brighter, her movements more animated, Marcus led her through corridors that had been completely cleared, security maintaining careful distance while tracking their progress. The gardens were one of Varncole's favorite places on the station, a carefully maintained ecosystem of plants from a dozen worlds. Trees stretched toward artificial skylights that simulated natural sunlight. Water features trickled and splashed. The air smelled of earth and growing things. Luna stepped into the space and stopped. Her head tilted upward, taking in the artificial sky. Her nostrils flared, processing scents she had not experienced in 2 years. And she made a sound, a long, mournful call that echoed through the gardens with heartbreaking clarity. "She remembers," Marcus said quietly. "This isn't like her homeworld, but it is closer than anything she has experienced since leaving Targus Prime. She remembers being free." They walked through the gardens slowly, Luna investigating everything with careful attention. She sniffed plants, pawed at the soil, drank from a stream, and Marcus stayed beside her, providing gentle guidance and quiet companionship. Varncole watched from a security station, monitoring every camera angle. And despite his better judgment, despite every regulation and protocol, he found himself moved by the sight. This was not a predator on a rampage. This was a being experiencing joy. "Chief," Melthra said softly beside him, "we are receiving communication requests from 6 different news networks. Word has gotten out about the human and the Ravenclaw. They want interviews, footage, the whole story." "Of course they do," Varncole muttered. "Nothing the galaxy loves more than impossible stories." "Is it really that impossible, though?" Melthra gestured at the screen where Luna had discovered a patch of flowers and was examining them with fascination while Marcus explained what they were. "We have seen it with our own eyes. Humans can bond with apex predators. They have been doing it on their own world for millennia. Why shouldn't they be able to do it with species from other worlds? Because it should not work. Every evolutionary principle says predators and prey are locked in eternal conflict. There should not be cooperation. There should not be friendship. It makes no logical sense." "Since when does friendship make logical sense?" Melthra smiled with her species-equivalent expression. "My own clutchmate and I have nothing in common. She is an engineer, I am security. She likes classical music, I prefer modern synthesizer compositions. By logic, we should not be close, but we are, because connection transcends logic." Varncole did not have a response to that. The 30-minute excursion stretched to 45, then an hour. Nobody had the heart to cut it short. Luna was so clearly happy, and Marcus so obviously content, that enforcing the time limit felt cruel. Finally, they returned to the habitat. Luna went reluctantly, pausing at the entrance to look back at the gardens one more time. Marcus knelt beside her, speaking too quietly for the external microphones to pick up. Then Luna turned and padded into her enclosure, and the doors closed behind her. Marcus remained there for a moment, staring at the habitat, then walked directly to the observation deck where Varncole and the research team waited. "Well," he asked, "did I prove my point?" "You proved," Ixthor said, materializing behind him with that unsettling way of hers, "that you have a remarkable gift for interspecies communication. You also proved that our containment and study protocols for intelligent apex predators need serious revision." Marcus blinked. "I'm sorry. Did you just say intelligent apex predators?" "Dr. Hicksna and Director Fenlock have compiled comprehensive evidence supporting sapience classification for Ravenclaws. The Galactic Convention will need to review it, but based on your interactions and our observations, Luna demonstrates self-awareness, emotional complexity, and social intelligence. She meets the criteria for personhood, which means," Hicksna added, looking both excited and slightly ill, "that we have been keeping a sapient being in captivity without her consent. The legal and ethical implications are staggering." "So, what happens now?" Marcus asked. "Now," Ixthor said, "we contact the Targus government and inform them of our findings. We begin developing new protocols for studying sapient predators that respect their autonomy and dignity, and we offer Luna a choice. A choice? Whether she wants to return to Targus Prime or remain here under significantly improved conditions, larger habitat, regular excursions, interactive enrichment. And if she stays, you will work with our research team as a consultant on predator communication. Marcus looked genuinely surprised. You are serious? I do not make jokes, Webb. You violated numerous regulations and caused me endless headaches. But you also demonstrated something valuable. That maybe we have been approaching xenobiological study from the wrong perspective. That maybe connection and respect yield better results than pure observation. Plus, Fenlock added with what might have been amusement, the funding we will receive for being the first facility to establish confirmed communication with a Class 7 apex predator will more than cover the security upgrades we will need. Over the following weeks, Station Kyros underwent massive changes. Luna's habitat was expanded to 3 times its original size, incorporating varied terrain, water features, and enrichment structures. Marcus moved from maintenance to a newly created position in the research division, and most surprisingly, Luna decided to stay. The decision was communicated through a series of interactions that Marcus interpreted and the research team documented. When presented with images of Targus Prime and the option to return, Luna showed clear signs of recognition and longing. But when shown images of Marcus and the station, she demonstrated stronger positive responses. She chose companionship over home. It was, Varncall reflected, the most human thing an alien predator could possibly do. The story spread through the galaxy like wildfire. The human who befriended a Ravenclaw became something of a legend. Scientists from 100 worlds requested permission to visit and observe. Conservation groups cited the case as evidence for new approaches to endangered predator species. And somewhere in the bureaucratic depths of Galactic Convention headquarters, people argued about redefining sapience criteria. Varncall stood in the observation deck one evening, watching Marcus and Luna in the expanded habitat. They were resting together on a rocky outcropping. Luna sprawled in the last rays of artificial sunlight while Marcus sat against her side, reading from a datapad. It was peaceful, domestic even. Never thought I would see something like this, Lieutenant Cross said, joining him at the window. Never thought I would allow something like this, Varncall replied. But here we are. You think other species could learn from this? The whole connection across differences thing? Maybe. Humans have a gift for it. They bond with anything. But perhaps the real lesson is not about humans specifically. Perhaps it is about being willing to see individuals instead of categories. Luna is not just a Ravenclaw anymore. She is Luna. That makes all the difference. Down in the habitat, Marcus said something that made Luna chirp, then nuzzled against him affectionately. The sight should have been terrifying. It was probably still a little terrifying, but it was also strangely hopeful. Chief, Melthra's voice crackled through his communicator. We have another situation. The research team just acquired a pack of Krell raptors from the Andor system. 6 juveniles. They are having trouble with the acclimation process and, well, someone suggested we ask Webb for advice. Varncall closed his eyes. Of course they did. Tell Webb we need to talk. Already on it. He says he is happy to help. Apparently, he has experience with pack dynamics from his time working with Earthwolves. Naturally, Varncall sighed. Inform the research team that if Webb ends up with 6 apex predators following him around the station, I am submitting a formal complaint to Galactic Command about inadequate hazard pay. Melthra laughed. Noted, Chief. As Varncall left the observation deck, he glanced back one more time. Marcus and Luna remained peacefully together. Predator and human, an impossible friendship that had changed everything. Humans, Varncall decided again, were definitely going to be the death of him. Or possibly, he admitted, they were going to make the galaxy a more interesting place to live. Either way, Station Kyros would never be boring again. And somewhere in the habitat, Luna chirped contentedly, knowing she had found something rare and precious. Not freedom, perhaps, but something equally valuable. She had found a friend.